Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron here. Did a review a while back on icons of evolution. And so Jonathan Wells got 2 PhDs, one from UCal Berkeley, one from Yale. So you can't argue with his credentials, so to speak. Works for the Discovery Institute. And so we're on the second chapter and we're in Darwin's Tree of Life. And what he does, the reason it's icons of evolution, is he takes things from modern college and high school textbooks and then popular science magazines like the Scientific American and Discover, and things that would be on television and documentaries, and then say, and it's all these pretty much are in the popular mind, and then he would say, here's how we know this is wrong, and that it's common knowledge in most scientific circles that it's wrong, but it's still promulgated as if it's fact. So why is this? And so the Darwin's Tree of Life is just like that. And basically what this is about is two things. The first thing is when we find fossils, we find no transitional fossils. Now, you can go to Wikipedia and find a list of supposed transitional fossils, but every single one of those are up for debate because there are many things like the duck-billed platypus, which may have omni-attributes, attributes of like fowl and fish together, but they are not an intermediary. They are, by studying it, you know this was what was originally intended. And so many of them, like Archaeopteryx, would either be that or some type of fraud or some combination of that. If you study Archaeopteryx, which is maybe the most popular of the supposed transitional fossils. But, so what happens, you get to the Cambrian explosion, everything in the fossil record from the Cambrian, we have everything just the way it is now. We do have some extinct animals, but everything is just the way it is now. And so from the Cambrian layer, which would be estimated at any, from the billions to the hundreds of millions of years age, depending on who you're talking to, till now, everything is just the way it is. And that's fascinating to me. I did a video a while back because it made the news that a couple people from like Rockefeller University and a university maybe in Austria just definitively said that basically every species of everything that exists arose spontaneously 100 to 200,000 years ago, according to DNA evidence. And of course, creation scientists went in there, looked at their methodology, and have determined with certain factors involved, you could make a real case 6,000 years ago. But even looking at it from an evolutionary viewpoint, the Cambrian record is no transitional fossils, none, zip. And this is known amongst people who are in the leading realms of paleontology around the world, and they understand the paucity. Now, Darwin explained it. He said, we'll find more. They found billions of fossils since then, and all they're finding is fossils like with flesh on them, blood on them, which could not have lasted hundreds of millions of years, like T-Rex bones or tens of millions of years, showing a very recent death. So now they're trying to come out with calcification and different theories of how these bones, the poor lady who published that initially from the first T-Rex bone in Montana or whatever, she was persecuted highly. It's a religious fervor. And this is one of the things, I just did a video on secularism and religion, is that secularism has its own dogmas, has its own saints, and has its own religious fervor, has its own index of prohibited books, like you see so many things, has its own everything, has its own scriptures, and it has all the makings of a faith because there's no evidence, and a religious dogma. And when people like a Stephen Jay Gould is brave enough to say that, or to offer alternate theories, which are very much like spontaneous creation, then you get excommunicated. You're a heretic. As a matter of fact, one of the evolutionary scientists that just became a Christian from Finland, the name of his book was Heretic, because, I mean, he's, getting rather big in sites in England, on the continent, excuse me, not in England, but on the continent in Europe. And, so he's like, now he's a heretic because of scientific truth. Science is supposed to be about the discovery of truth. So that's the big thing, is Darwin's tree of life in the Precambrian and then the Cambrian eras does not exist. There's nothing from bacteria, which is complex, and that brings me to the second point. There's no intermediaries, and actually there's an impossibility of intermediaries because like 6 through 20 celled animals don't exist. They go up to 5 and then they start at like 21 or something. And so you have all these things, and I would really appreciate it if people comment on this video, by the way, that you would at least watch the video. If you have, you've watched it at this point, because so many of the comments are just like, creationism is stupid, you're an idiot, and I'm going to write really big words to tell you that, but you don't deal with the facts. You don't deal with that, or if you do, you've never even heard these arguments before, and so then you Google it real quick and cut and paste something from Wikipedia and think that you're some type of amateur paleontologist, which you're not. And you're saying the same things you say Christians do. You're doing the exact same thing. So you do have to be careful with projection there. All right, so in the tree of life, 2 things. First of all, Cambrian explosion, there's no transitional fossils. Precambrian fossils, there's no migration, there's no transitional fossils. So you have no fossil record. Now the next thing is that you have genetic walls that prevent things from going from one species to another species. Different colors of peppered moths are still moths. This in no way proves evolution in any way, shape, or form. The beaks of Darwin's finches being micromillimeters different in no way proves evolution. If anything, it shows adaptation within DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, just to be able to survive under various circumstances. But usually it has to do with the fact that during periods of drought, the longer billed finches survive, the shorter billed ones fly to Chile and eat the readily available bugs, and then once the rains come back, then the shorter billed ones come back and they're eating. There's no even adaptation of the species. It's nothing of the sort. So Darwin's tree of life does not exist. Biologists, microbiologists, paleontologists know it doesn't exist, and yet it is perpetrated on a gullible American public, primarily American public, because in China you can question it, in Germany you can question it, you can't in the United States. It is an article of faith, and it's really a spiritual stronghold that we need to pray about and ask the Lord to tear it down so people can believe truth. Because if Genesis 1, 2, and 3 is not right, if there was no fall, there's no redeeming from the fall. There's no need for Jesus. Atheists even say that. So we better defend Genesis 1, 2, and 3. It's not mythology. It is facts. It is history. And it is what everything in science points towards. And true science. So God bless. We love you. We'll talk with you later in Jesus' name.